Message, not only to my European colleagues, but especially to the United States, is that if we don't drive a more cooperative or dignified foreign policy with especially the global south, the likes of India, we're going to lose.
It is testament to the cack-handed diplomacy of Trump. Just recently, India was being promoted as a member of the D10.
India is an absolutely critical piece of the puzzle as America tries to figure out what to do about China going into the second quarter of this century. And to see Modi as friendly with Xi as he has been the last couple of days is certainly concerning to us. There's a lot of folks who understand why.
तो हेलो एवरीवन, मेरा नाम है अनुराग और स्वागत है आपका मेरे चैनल पे। तो भारत को लेके अमेरिका ने जो कुछ टाइम से अपना रवैया अपना के रखा है, उसका धीरे धीरे उसके खामियाजा भुगतना पड़ रहा है। डोनाल्ड ट्रंप की जियोपॉलिटिकल ब्लंडर की वजह से भारत और अमेरिका का रिश्ता काफी बुरा हो चुका है। अब हालिया में नरेंद्र मोदी चाइना में शी जिनपिंग और व्लादिमीर पुतिन के साथ मिले और एक वीडियो सामने आई जिसमें तीनों नेता एक साथ दिख रहे हैं और काफी खुशनुमा सा माहौल है। और ये देखकर वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज काफी ज्यादा चिंतित हैं। जो वेस्टर्न न्यूज चैनल्स के एंकर हैं, उन्होंने ये बताया कि ये डोनाल्ड ट्रंप की जियोपॉलिटिकल ब्लंडर थी कि उन्होंने भारत को काफी इग्नोर किया और उस पर 50% की टैरिफ लगा दी। तो आइए हम सुनते हैं कि वेस्टर्न एंकर्स क्या कह रहे हैं।
Derek Grossman, Professor of International Relations at the University of Southern California. Derek, thanks for joining us. You're watching this summit unfold just as we are. Do you see this as China positioning itself as the clear alternative to the US global leadership that we've seen up until now?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I do think it is part and parcel of that approach, but let's also be clear that China has been doing this now for the better part of 2 decades to try to compete against the United States diplomatically, economically, militarily, and I guess more recently, technologically. And so this is, I mean, what we've seen, in the past couple of days with China hosting the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, and then what we're about to see with the World War II Victory Day Parade. You have North Korean leader Kim Jong-un there. Of course, Russian President Vladimir Putin is still there, and many other leaders are going to be attending. This is China trying to show the world that it is now not only a great power, but also an ascendant, potentially superpower that could surpass the United States in the global order. And the United States, I must say, is not doing itself any favors. In fact, I'm on the record as saying recently that we are self-destructing under the Trump administration because we are implementing things like reciprocal tariffs across the board. We are no longer the center of globalization and free trade. We also are undermining our own alliances and partnerships. I mean, look at what we've done in the last few months with India. And so that's, where we are. And I think China is benefiting quite significantly from it.
Let me just dig into that for 1 second. Trump has claimed that he's offered to cut the tariffs to nothing for India, but they've yet to respond to this as well. How likely do you think it is that we'll see this big turnaround, an almost 180 from the Trump administration?
Well, I do think that the Trump administration has bitten off more than it can chew with India. First, it started with 25% reciprocal tariffs, and then reportedly, because of the Trump administration's displeasure with India's relationship with India and importing discounted barrels of Russian oil, they slapped another 25% on. So now we're at 50%. But I mean, to your point, could there be a quick turnaround? Could there be a quick deal, right? I think Trump certainly thinks so because he has a very good relationship with Modi, or at least did up until recently. But that remains to be seen. And I think, if you talk to Indian interlocutors, which I do all the time, or, senior Indian government officials, they will tell you that a lot of damage has been done in terms of their trust of the United States. Now that trust is turned into distrust. And that is going to take a long time to repair. I don't think it's like a light switch that could be turned on and off.
The imagery was stark as you've walked through, not only individually between Modi and President Xi of China, but obviously President Putin of Russia, hand in hand, talking, laughing. President Modi, or Prime Minister Modi, also took a ride, and President
he got an hour in the limousine.
In the limo.
Putin wanted to top Trump on that, right? They only got 5 minutes in the piece.
That's right, potentially. I mean, what's clear is that Modi is demonstrating his freedom of action, his own autonomy, and the fact that India has other choices out there, not just the United States. And the timing of this summit, which has obviously been on the books for a long period of time, gave him that opportunity to demonstrate that there were other options. Now, to be clear, though, the scope of his discussions with both Russia and China were far more limited than the pictures would let us believe, particularly when we look at China, a country that Indian soldiers have actually gone to blows with as recently as just a few years ago, that has deep structural problems in their relationship. Deep concerns about competition that China has about India's growing economy, and India's concern about China dominating its economy and limiting its autonomy in the region, both as a security partner and as an economic entity. And so with that in mind, this was a tactical shift on Modi's part, not a strategic shift in terms of realignment with President Xi in the long term. And when we look at the announcements, actually the substance of what came out of this, we saw very little. Right? We saw talk of returning to direct flights between China and India. We saw some discussion of smaller levels of border trade, but that's the level that we're talking about. Despite those pictures, there's still a lot to do. And with Russia, we saw a much friendlier relationship, right? Putin and Modi see themselves as strategic partners and have for some time. Modi was demonstrating directly, a pushback against the White House, that he could still have his relationship and that he was going to continue to buy oil and trade with Moscow. And all of that designed for both the domestic audience and for those in Washington to understand that they can't push.
As I mentioned there, William Hague interprets what we're seeing from China as basically Donald Trump's failure to recognize what America stepping back from the world stage would mean. Is that your sort of interpretation of what's going on?
It is, and I think that the display we saw yesterday from Narendra Modi holding Putin's hand, riding in the car with him, huddled with Xi, smiling, laughing, is the most visible display of that. Because after all, the United States before Trump and Western allies have worked very hard to court Modi, to bring him on board, to join this coalition to contain China. And you have to pinch yourself, remind yourself that only 5 years ago, China and India were fighting a mini war up in the Himalayas when China encroached on Indian territory. And so this is a remarkable turnaround, and it is testament to the cack-handed diplomacy of Trump. Just recently, India was being promoted as a member of the D10, the 10 most democratic leading democracies in the world. And now here he is, shoulder to shoulder with two authoritarian leaders. Now, how much substance there is to that, how serious we should take that, I'm a little skeptical, because I think the message Modi is sending is to Trump. He's also sending a message back home saying, hey, I've got other friends. I don't need you. I won't be pushed around. And I don't like the way that you are cozying up to Pakistan.
Well, 2 weeks ago, US President Donald Trump warned he'll know how he would proceed unless Russia comes to the negotiating table. Now, 14 days later, little progress has been made on achieving a peace deal as the conflict with Ukraine escalates. Joining me now is former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. Mick, good morning to you as always. Lovely to see you. First, I just want to get your thoughts about the meeting in China. Now, it all looked super friendly, jokes being made. If optics are anything to go by, they were presenting a pretty united front. What's your take on it?
We're watching it very closely here in Washington, D.C. this week. There's no question about that. India is an absolutely critical piece of the puzzle as America tries to figure out what to do about China going into the second quarter of this century. And to see Modi as friendly with Xi as he has been the last couple of days is certainly concerning to us. There's a lot of folks who understand why that is. Somehow a relationship that was very strong between Donald Trump and Narendra Modi during the first term has cooled very, very quickly. We have seen the same videos you've seen, the two leaders, Xi and Modi.
The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has hailed his country's ties with Russia, saying the allies stand together even in difficult times. The two leaders held talks on the sidelines of the SCO meeting in Tianjin against a backdrop of tense relations between India and the U.S. over New Delhi's continued purchases of Russian oil.
Mr. Modi noted that close cooperation between New Delhi and Moscow is vital, not just for the people, but for global peace, stability, and prosperity. Mr. Putin described the nations as close and trusted friends. He added their friendship flourished because of strong public support, not politics.
Уважаемый господин премьер-министр, дорогой друг, Россия и Индия поддерживают десятилетиями особые отношения, дружеские, доверительные. Это фундамент для развития наших отношений в будущем.
Mr. Modi also used the meeting to highlight peaceful initiatives for the war in Ukraine. He said he hopes all sides will move together constructively, calling on its early resolution.
एक्सेलेंसी, यूक्रेन में चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय में हम लगातार चर्चा करते रहे हैं। हाल में किए गए शांति के सभी प्रयासों का हम स्वागत करते हैं। हम आशा करते हैं कि सभी पक्ष कंस्ट्रक्टिवली आगे बढ़ेंगे, संघर्ष को जल्द से जल्द खत्म करने और स्थायी शांति स्थापित करने का रास्ता खोजना होगा। ये पूरी मानवता की पुकार है। एक्सेलेंसी, एक बार फिर आपका मैं हृदय से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ।
For more insight on the takeaways of the SCO summit, let's speak now with Dr. John Blaxland. He's the director of ANU North America and liaison professor of international security and intelligence studies at the Australian National University. Thank you very much for joining us, Professor. I mean, this summit was clearly a stage for President Xi to promote his vision of a multipolar order. Just looking at the 5-point plan and also his rhetoric against multilateralism, do you think Mr. Xi achieved what he set out to in Tianjin?
There's something really here, Julie. It's quite a powerful representation of a symbolic unity between these great powers, India, Russia, and China. And that is something we wouldn't have seen a little while ago because the United States has been wooing India for some time and has been making a real concerted effort to make sure that India is well placed to support America's ambitions to check Chinese influence. But of course, what we've seen a real transformation here. Russia has always had a close relationship with India. India's had a codependency with Russia. For the United States to demand that it cut off its oil connections with Russia was a bridge too far, coupled with the surprising 50% tariffs imposed on India. It's driven India very much into China's arms, surprising everybody really, because for quite some time now, China and India have been very much at odds. So the dynamics are shifting. So when we see the optics, it looks very friendly and warm.
America is often criticized for being short-term in its orientation, quick to change course. In fact, Washington often shows a steely consistency in its foreign policy. Consider the strategic outreach to India that began during the Clinton administration and was expanded on in a bipartisan manner over 25 years until now. Donald Trump's sudden, inexplicable hostility toward India reverses policies pursued under 5 administrations, including his own previous one. If it holds, this reversal may be the biggest strategic mistake of the Trump presidency so far. After the Cold War, the U.S. began a sustained outreach toward India. President Clinton's visit in 2000 was hugely successful and opened up the possibility of a new warm relationship between the two countries. The pivotal shift took place under George W. Bush. His administration realized that a rising China was transforming the international system, and the single most important counterweight to China could be India, then the world's second most populous country, which was also beginning to reform economically and integrate with the world. A close relationship between Washington and New Delhi would be the key to preventing Chinese domination of Asia and securing America's interests in the region. The giant obstacle in the way of better U.S.-India ties was India's nuclear weapons program. Washington had penalized India for this to preserve the global non-proliferation regime. The Bush administration decided that India should be treated like a great power, like France or Britain or China. It offered a historic deal that ended the isolation India had faced because of its nukes. That deal, expertly navigated on the Indian side by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, marked a watershed in the relations between the two countries. After that, things got closer. The Obama administration saw India as key to its pivot to Asia and supported New Delhi's bid to become a permanent member of the UN Security Council. He greatly increased trade between the two economies. The first Trump administration took an important leap forward politically. It elevated the Quad, a defense-oriented group of the US, Australia, Japan, and India, and gave it more substance. Trump also embraced and promoted his personal relationship with Prime Minister Modi. President Biden built on the Trump legacy, forging greater cooperation in defense and economics. India began planning to cooperate with the US in the manufacture of everything, from fighter jets to computer chips. In the second quarter of this year, India exported more smartphones to the US market than China. India is a prickly country. It was colonized and dominated by the West, ruled by Britain for 2 centuries. After its independence, it was supported unequivocally by the Soviet Union, while America gave money and arms to its adversarial neighbor, Pakistan. Being a large, diverse, messy democracy, it has domestic interests that it cannot ignore. Despite all this, Washington, through painstaking, patient diplomacy, was able to nudge New Delhi closer and closer so that the two countries' interests and actions were aligned. Enter Trump 2.0. With little warning, Donald Trump has undone decades of painstaking effort by American diplomats. He has placed India in the highest category of tariff countries, along with Syria and Myanmar, while placing Pakistan at just 19% and offering joint efforts to look for oil in that country. There is little accessible oil there. He met with Pakistan's army chief in private. A Trump family-backed firm has had ties to Pakistan's National Crypto Council, all fueling suspicions of backroom deals. Trump has suddenly turned on India, insulting its economy, calling it dead. In fact, India has had the fastest growing large economy in the world for several years now and is the world's 4th largest economy and will likely overtake Germany by 2028 to become number 3 after the US and China. It is the world's 2nd largest importer of arms and has the 2nd largest number of smartphone users. India has a long history of seeking to be non-aligned. Under Modi, it embraced a variation called multi-alignment, allowing it to freelance and maintain good ties with all sides. Persistent American diplomacy and the rise of China had been chipping away at that stance, and India had slowly but surely been embracing closer ties with America. No more. Even if Trump reverses course once again, the damage is done. Indians believe that America has shown its true colors, its unreliability, its willingness to be brutal to those it calls its friends. They will understandably feel that they need to hedge their bets, stay close to Russia, and even make amends with China. The country is united in its shock and anger at Trump's insulting behavior. When I'm in India, I often urge the country to forge closer ties with America, telling Indians that they should shed their ambivalence, that their destiny lies in a great partnership between the world's oldest and its largest democracy. Today, I would be hard-pressed to urge Indians to follow that advice.
तो आपने सुना कि किस तरीके से अब वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज के लोगों को ये रियलाइज हो रहा है कि भारत अगर अमेरिका के पक्ष में नहीं रहेगा तो चाइना काफी आगे निकल जाएगा अमेरिका से। हालिया में इसको लेके नेटो के मेंबर फिनलैंड के प्रेसिडेंट ने एक काफी महत्वपूर्ण बयान दिया है, तो चलिए सुनते हैं उन्होंने क्या कहा है।
With the Shanghai Cooperation Group is what we have been seeing in the sidelines for a longer time. There's an attempt to undermine the unity of the global West. And my message, not only to my European colleagues, but especially to the United States, is that if we don't drive a more cooperative or dignified foreign policy with especially the global South, the likes of India, we're going to lose this game. So I think this meeting in China on Sunday and Monday is a good reminder to all of us in the global West what is at stake. We're trying to preserve the remnants of the old order, and that's what it's all about.
तो आपने अभी सुना कि फिनलैंड के प्रेसिडेंट ने क्या कहा। तो आज के लिए दोस्तों बस इतना ही। तो कमेंट करके जरूर बताइए कि ये वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज का मेल्टडाउन आपको कैसा लगा। वीडियो को लाइक, शेयर और सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिएगा। जय हिंद, जय भारत।